Hey, hello everybody, welcome. We're a little bit early here. We'll just start in a minute. I guess more people are joining slowly, and I have to check how that works with the YouTube live stream. As I said before, I'm trying to live stream this on YouTube. I hope it works. I tried it once before and it didn't really work very well, unfortunately. So we'll see how this goes today. And I hope that I will manage also to catch your um, to catch your questions and your comments and whatever might be on your mind about learning Norwegian. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Venus Kalla. I'm the founder of Skapago. We make story-based language courses. And here I actually tried to do these Q&As a little bit more regularly, but unfortunately it's a bit difficult for technical reasons. I didn't manage to do this very often. So but finally we got one together again. So that's really great. And this is basically for any question that you might have about learning Norwegian, about my Norwegian courses, about the Norwegian language in general, about learning strategies. It can be concrete questions about a specific problem you've encountered while you're learning Norwegian. It can be a question about materials. Basically, whatever comes up is welcome. Maybe the people on YouTube, could you just text hi or something like this in the chat, just so I know that this is working, that you can actually hear me, and that I can also check whether the chat is functioning. I hope it does. Unfortunately, on YouTube, you can only ask questions in the chat, obviously. So a question you might have, just type it in the chat. And on Zoom, you have two options. So you can either type your question in the chat if you want to, or of course, you can just raise your hand. There is a function at the bottom of the screen. And then you can also unmute yourself and you can ask questions directly in the microphone. And I hope that this works also in YouTube, that it will also be possible for people to actually hear you and not just hear me. I would say without further ado, let's get started. So whoever has the first question, feel free to just go ahead and put it in the chat, or if you want to, you can, of course, also raise your hand and just unmute your microphone. We're not so many people here in Zoom, so I guess we can do that very informally. And as I said, like any question is fine, whether it's about learning Norwegian in general or in specific, please just let me know. And I can answer questions in either English or Norwegian, for that matter, also in German or French, if there is somebody. I guess, Colleen, you unmuted yourself. Welcome.
Thank you very much. This is a wonderful opportunity. I'm from South Africa. I'm in Cape Town. But I have
Nice.
Norwegian ancestors. That's why I'm trying to learn Norwegian now on Duolingo.
Okay, interesting.
The question that I have, which has just occurred in the last couple of days, they've introduced passive case or passive voice.
Yeah.
I'm trying to determine for myself. I write down lots of examples, and I'm trying to identify what the difference is between the verb sort of ending es, for example, lettermåløses, and the ones that end et. Jeg har blitt skadet av en hund.
Yeah. So the difference is not that it's different verbs. You can do the same for both. So I can write, I'm going to type this in the chat, dette må løses. That's one option. Or I can write dette må bli løst. Dette må bli løst. Okay, that's basically the same. Both of them are fine, are acceptable ways of expressing passive voice, and there is a bit of a difference in usage. So the one with the S is actually more used for a bit formal situations. So, for example, you hear if you ever took the subway in Oslo, they say dørene lukkes. They could actually also say dørene blir lukket, but they say dørene lukkes because it's a bit formal. It's a bit, it's not your friend telling you what's going on. It's the train driver or the train company that is telling you what is happening. So therefore, they use this S passive, what we call S passive.
Okay.
Also, we cannot use the S passive in all tenses. So we cannot use the S passive in the past tense. So we cannot say, for example, that like when I can say this was solved yesterday. So I can write dette ble løst I går. That works. I cannot do the same with the S passive. In Swedish, I can actually, but in Norwegian, this doesn't work. So in Norwegian, the only way to say it is actually with the bli passive. So so the difference is really just in the usage. S passive is usually when we're talking about rules or instructions or something a little bit more formal, and also with modal verbs, we like to combine the S passive because then it works very well. I can say dette må løses. Then I can actually put it in the past tense, right? I could say dette måtte løses because now I'm going to conjugate the må instead of the løses. So and then I don't have so many verbs. Like when I say dette må bli løst, I have 3 verbs. That's a lot. We can drop one by using the S passive. That's basically the difference. But they work for all verbs. Actually, there's no difference in the selection of verbs.
Right. Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great. Okay, just a reminder for the people on YouTube, if you want to ask a question, you will have to do it in the chat. Because otherwise it doesn't work on Zoom. Of course, if people are a bit privileged. If you want to get on the newsletter, like next time when we do something similar, if you're on my newsletter, then you can get the notification for these events, and you would basically just have to, let me see, I can share the link maybe with you in the chat, so you have the option to subscribe. I think it should work here. Then next time you can join through Zoom, so that's maybe a little bit more practical. Okay, who is next? Who has a question? As I said, anything about grammar, pronunciation, learning strategies, materials, anything that's on your mind, feel free to just raise your hand. And Andy, I think you have, but you would have to unmute your microphone because we cannot hear you. At the bottom left, you should have at the bottom left, there should be a button.
There we go.
Yes, perfect.
There we go. I pressed everything about 3 times. So probably I've pressed something too many times.
Yeah, okay.
But very nice to see you, and Colleen too.
Yeah, nice to see you too.
Yeah, it is. You're doing a wonderful thing. I just have to laugh again. A friend of mine is teaching me Norwegian because she's German.
Oh yeah.
And
so that's the thing, German people teaching Norwegian, right? That's
yeah. Already she's doing better than me with no effort whatsoever. It's funny, but the harder it gets, the better she is. Obscure rules and grammar and obscure words she's very good at. Whereas simple words, she says, like mart. She says, I wouldn't think that's a food ever. But she was talking to me the other day about adjectival order, and we did have a discussion. I did send this to you, and I forget what you wrote back, but I know in German it's very important.
Yeah, I remember we had that.
That's right. And I was just
I'm not so sure if this is something to really focus on. I mean, there is a natural order actually for adjectives, but I would say that's a bit very, I mean, nobody's going to complain if you mix that up. On top of it, it's also something, you know, there's a difference between writing and speaking when we go into such small details, because when I want to describe something and I'm speaking, then I'm spontaneous, meaning I will pick the first adjective that comes to mind. So I will say it's green, and it's also small, and it's whatever, old. So it just goes coincidentally by what comes into my mind. When I write, I have more time, so then I can find maybe a natural order of these adjectives. But yeah, I'm a little bit skeptical of putting too much effort into knowing these rules. We are in general, 95% of language students are way too obsessed about grammar rules and too little obsessed about pronunciation and actually getting to speak and listening a lot. That's
You're right. Pronunciation has got to be pronunciation. When I listen to people who are learning Norwegian, it's they do well. They get the right words. They remember the words. The grammar is not too bad, but the pronunciation varies from really good to just simply terrible. And it's not for me to say.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You know, you sound like an Englishman speaking Norwegian. You don't sound like a Norwegian. It's wrong. And I think pronunciation is really something to look for. And I know I miss out on that a lot. SK, SJY, this such thing, KJ, R on the end of the verbs.
I would like to invite you to like put some effort into that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on my YouTube channel. There is in my courses. There's a lot of material for pronunciation. So I think also out there in the internet. And then it really comes down to practicing that a lot. There is something I see a lot with grammar, that people are aware of the fact that, I don't know, say, for example, the word order in a subordinate clause is something that you have to practice. So you learn it, and then you will apply it, and then you make a mistake, and you practice it again, and a month later you'll come back to it, and so on. So people are aware of it. But then I tell you in the Norwegian course how to make the letter E, and people practice it once, it doesn't work very well, and then they abandon it. So this is not very realistic. When we want to learn pronunciation, we also need to practice. It's just very normal. So I'd like to invite you also, once you have learned like to produce certain sounds, to take the time and to take the energy and really repeat it a couple of minutes per day. I always tell people in front of the mirror when you're brushing your teeth, just work a little bit on your pronunciation, so you can also check what you're doing with your teeth, with your lips. This can really get you a long way. So, I mean, it's just a general thing that I believe the balance between grammar and pronunciation is usually like this and should be a bit more.
I agree. I agree. I know myself. I don't think I've ever been asked to read anything in my years of learning Norwegian, and I think actually that's a mistake, really. And I should do it even for myself. I should take a book and read it, because it's very good for practicing and getting your mouth around the vowels, because they're mixed up in Norwegian. So you got
and you can also, if you have the audio. So, for example, with a Niels story, what you can do, you can pick something from early on in the book. You know, I don't know. You start somewhere in chapter 4 or something like that, and you can read this. You could even record it if you dare. Some people are a bit scared, but you could record it on your phone, and then you can compare to the audio recording. And you can see, this I pronounced a bit different. This I pronounced a bit in a different way. Here I forgot that actually in this word we pronounce the U as an O, things like that. So that could also be an exercise that could be quite, helpful.
I must do that. It has been fun. I have to say, learning Norwegian. It's been a great joy, and I've really learned so much about language, about German, about people, about about the history of words, and the more you learn, I think the easier it gets. I think there is a certain third part where you actually get better with less effort.
It gets better beyond, like from around B1. Like when you're A2, this is really the most difficult time because you don't see your progress anymore. Yet at the same time, you're not as good as being able to use the language without hesitating. So when you get over that hill, then from B1, then it gets easier because it takes a lot of time to improve, but you can already use the language quite, with not too much effort, basically. So then it gets much easier.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. I think there's a couple of questions in the chat. Maybe I can answer these in between. And just a reminder for the people on YouTube, I don't know if there's an issue with technical things. I hope not, because maybe you can reply to my message here. If you want to ask a question on YouTube, you would have to do it in the chat. There is no other option. Obviously, you can't just raise your hand. Okay, I have a question from Chris here. What is the difference between Kvensk and Svensk? These are two completely different languages. Svensk is just the Norwegian name for Swedish. Swedish, some people might not know, but Swedish is very, very similar to Norwegian. It's so similar that we could call it the dialect of the same language. It's very, like for me, it's very easy to understand Swedish. When I talk to Swedish people, they speak Swedish. I speak Norwegian. We call that svorsk. It works perfectly, no issue at all in the communication. Kvensk is, linguists might throw rotten tomatoes at me, but I would say it's a Finnish dialect that is spoken as a minority language in the very north of Norway, where you have Norway bordering with Finland and Russia. So in this region, you have people who came from Finland, I think centuries ago, to be honest, and they speak, you might call it an old version of Finnish, which, by the way, is a completely different language. Finnish has absolutely nothing to do with West European languages, Scandinavian languages, and this language is called Kvensk, actually. So if you learn Norwegian, you do not understand a single word of Kvensk. It's related to Sami, so the other much bigger minority language in the north of Norway. These languages are in one family: Sami, Kvensk, Finnish, Estonian also, and Hungarian. So it's a very, very weird mixture of languages, these 5. And then there are a couple more languages in this family that are spoken somewhere in Russia, mostly in the Ural mountain regions. That's where these people actually originally came from 1,500 years ago. And that's how it spread into Europe. But in Europe, you have like these language islands of these languages. But Swedish, if you learn Norwegian very well, then you can understand Swedish also without any problems. Cool. Chris, maybe you can just type in whether that answered your question, or if you have a follow-up question, something like that. Don is asking, will the recording of this be available online to watch later? You have a question but need to leave. I hope you're still there. Oh, yeah, you're still there, right? But I think it will be available. If there is no issue with a YouTube live stream, it should be available without any problems. What kind of study or exercises would you recommend for vocabulary learning? Okay, so Don, maybe could you write a couple of sentences or a couple words, just notes on how you're learning right now, how you're learning Norwegian right now, which is like your main source of learning. Vocabulary is a long-term game. So there's 2 things here. One is that we cannot learn too many words per day, because we just don't remember them. So you might have this experience in high school where they give you 30 sorts of vegetables to memorize until Thursday, and maybe you manage to memorize them for the exam on Thursday, but the next week you will have forgotten all of them, or maybe all but 2 or 3 that you found particularly funny or easy to learn or whatever. So we cannot learn very many new words every day. And on the other hand, if you want to get fluent, we need to have a couple of thousand words. Otherwise, it doesn't really work well. So that's one of the reasons, by the way, why learning a language super fast just doesn't work. Like all these methods, learn Estonian in 30 days, 2 minutes per day, and you will be fluent in Mandarin Chinese by next Saturday. It doesn't work because you cannot build the vocabulary. That's the simple. So you need to find some way of making it a regular habit. It's super important that you get like 3 new words per day, 5 new words per day, something like this. The other thing is that you cannot do it in a too mechanical way. That's, by the way, why I embed my courses in a story. So you have a context. So you learn words through a situation where they're applied. And because then it's much easier to recall. Oh, that's when he said this or that to this other person, and yeah, you're going to remember what the word actually is. So I don't recommend going on a vocabulary trainer and just randomly learning 3 or 4 or 5 new words per day. However, you can do that as a repetition. Like, because it's nice to learn new words in a context, but you will still forget them. So repetition is quite important. So if you learn, for example, with one of my courses, it could be an idea to just go back and listen to the story again and again. Like you're in chapter 7, okay, you start from scratch listening just to everything from chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And then chapter 3, you stumble upon an expression, you're like, oh, I don't remember actually, what was that expression? So you look it up, you go to the vocabulary list and look it up. Or you take a dictionary and look it up. Vocabulary training, you can do it with flashcards, but you wrote in the chat now, cool. Yes, you're still here. The issue is that vocabulary learning is that everyone recommends flashcards. No, you don't have to do it with flashcards. I'll say something in a minute. I hate the SR system, I guess, is like spaced repetition, because I dislike the lack of context. Well, that's a problem, but I have a time constraint for learning Norwegian, so I need to try and learn vocab. Currently studying through a combination of talking Norwegian friend and doing some grammar studies. Okay, well, then that's a little bit of I understand your question a little bit better, because the problem is, of course, you will need some way of doing it. Definitely not the flashcards, but you will have to do something. And I mean, I don't want to sound like too salesy, but of course, my courses might be something for you, because you can get this context then, right? Like 80%, 90% of the vocabulary I teach through the story around Niels, and you will automatically learn the vocabulary if you listen to that a lot. And the thing with the listening is that you can do it anywhere. You can do it while you're waiting for the bus, or while you're walking in the forest, and while you're, I don't know, going on a walk in the city and buying groceries. So that would also work. I encourage you also to work on basically having a bit of this hunter's mentality. So when you say you're talking to a Norwegian friend, okay, cool. If she or he uses an expression you don't know and you like and you think you find useful, write it down. So have a notepad, have an app in your phone that lets you collect words. So you don't just, I don't know how you do it, maybe 10, 20 minutes you meet, or half an hour or something you talk. But then you have a couple of expressions that you would like to know, write them down. And the next day, repeat them, look at them again. It takes not even 2 minutes, but this will enhance your progress a lot. Because otherwise, if you just meet and you talk randomly without structure, odds are you're going to hear new words, and she might even explain what they mean and everything perfect and so on. But then you walk home, and if I ask you what was the Norwegian word for this or that, you'll have forgotten about it. So this repetition aspect is super, super important. Doesn't have to be flashcards. It can be a notepad. It can be something. It's really not that important what you do, but some repetition should be done, I guess. And it's especially when you're on a time constraint, because if you use a lot of time, for example, for these talks, which is great, but then you should try to get the most out of it. And that would include actually taking 2 minutes to learn vocabulary. You could go and say, for example, I want, from every talk I do with her, I want the 5 favorite words that I've learned, nothing more, and just collect them like you would collect stamps in the old days. Maybe you can type if that's answering your question, or if you have maybe a follow-up question. Yeah, everyone is doing sales for me. Yeah, as I said, I don't want to be too salesy. One last question. Okay, from speaking with Norwegian people, they seem to agree that sometimes på is included a bit strangely. Is this an accurate statement? What do you mean it's included a bit strangely? I don't get this. It's an accurate statement. Is there any history behind it? På is included. Yeah, maybe you could specify what that means, and then I can get back to that. Cool. Chris says you mentioned Kvensk at the bottom of page 49 in Niels 2, and then talk about Svensk on the very next page. It confuses me. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's maybe not, yeah, it's just very short. Kvensk har sine røtter i finsk. Dette språket blir fremdeles snakket av noen folk i den nordligste delen av landet. But it says actually that it has roots in Finnish. I could write a little bit more about Kvensk in maybe on this page 49. There is still some space. So with the next edition of Niels, maybe I can put a bit more. Okay. Great. Then we have Andy's question. Oh, wait, did I hop over something here? No. What do you think of the good and bad sides of Duolingo now it has been around for several years? So Duolingo, good sides and bad sides. I think the bad sides are quite obvious because it's not structured very well. You will not learn very much. I've never seen anybody who has learned any language only by using Duolingo. Never, ever. That's just the reality. I would say that's the biggest disadvantage. The advantage is, though, that you can use it anywhere. This I find really cool. You have a 5-minute bus drive, and you can just pull out your phone and play a little bit on the Duolingo. I also don't share the criticism that some people have, that they have weird sentences that you're practicing with. Yes, they do. But I would say that's an advantage because it's more likely that you're going to recall what was being said. The absurdity is usually a great engine for our curiosity and therefore for our memory. So usually we remember things more easily when when they're a bit weird, when they're a bit strange. So I wouldn't share this criticism, but it doesn't give you much explanations. It doesn't explain to you why certain things work in a certain way. The exercises, all in all, are just a bit too basic, I would say, as a tool on its own. But I don't think it's a very fair criticism, also because I mean, it is an app to play around, to practice a little bit, and not more than that, which is fine. And then I would say, if you use it like this, then it's absolutely great. I used to have, I tried to use it a bit for French, actually, but so this has changed maybe in the meantime. I had one issue with it back then. It would never get more difficult. So I'm relatively advanced in French, I would say. And it gave me only basic sentences all the time. So it goes and says, tu as vu le garçon, tu as vu la fille. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I want something more complicated, and it just doesn't give me, and I don't know why. So yeah, that's, I would say, also a bad side, but maybe this has changed in the meantime. Okay, let's see. Don had a follow-up question. In some sayings, it seems a bit random. Yes, it definitely is. It's hard to explain since I don't know much. I'll try and get an example. I'm determined to achieve. Når jeg er fast bestemt å oppnå den, jeg er fast bestemt på å oppnå denne drømmen. Ja, jeg er fast bestemt å oppnå denne drømmen. Jeg er fast bestemt på å oppnå denne drømmen. So the thing about using prepositions like på, and prepositions are these small words that go like on, under, in, to, for, between, all of these small words that actually describe a position, but it could be a very abstract way. Of course, I can say, I don't know, the glasses on the book, yeah, then it really describes a position, but I'm looking forward to my holidays. Why to? Why not I'm looking forward on my holidays? I'm looking forward in my holidays, right? There is absolutely no reason why it should be I'm looking forward to them in English, and that's unfortunately the same logic in Norwegian. So prepositions are not logical at all. They get used like so many things in languages, and people adapt to a certain way of using them, and then they suddenly become a bit habitual. The problem that we might have is that we try to translate from one language to another. So we go and say, okay, in English, it's I like to be in this situation, and then in another language, it will be exactly this word also in, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be exactly the same preposition, and the same is true for adjectives. So you can be bestemt på å gjøre noe. That's just how we say it in Norwegian. There's really no reason, no grammar rule. It's just that we do it in this way. And you basically have to know it. On the other hand, it's not so bad if you make a mistake with that. People will usually understand what you want to say. Yeah, I don't know if I can come up with an example spontaneously. Yeah, I think in English you say, do you say welcome to somewhere, welcome in somewhere? Like in Norwegian, we cannot really say velkommen I, we would say velkommen til. But with the I and på, for example, people have big problems which one to use, right? You would say in, like the basic meaning is in I is inside something. So inside a building, inside a box, inside anything. And på means on top of something. But sometimes we have these, like we say I stua, but we say på kjøkkenet. Why? It's just how we do it. Same with planes. Like the general rule is we say I for the big places, like I Oslo, I Stavanger, I Bergen, and på for the small places, like på, I don't know, Leknes. But sometimes that doesn't also hold true. And sometimes you don't really know, like, is Hamar big or is it small? Do you say på Hamar, I Hamar? The funniest one I know is actually Mo I Rana. That's a small town, yeah, not far from the polar circle in Norway. And it's, you can shorten it. You can just say Mo, or you say Mo I Rana, like Rana is the region, so that's where the name comes from. And you would say I Mo I Rana, but you would say på Mo. It's the same place. We can use two different prepositions depending on whether we shorten the name or we don't. So unfortunately, there is not really a rule. It's something I would say for a more advanced level, B1 and beyond. And then you will get there by just hearing an expression many, many times. Once you've heard like på kjøkkenet 50 times, you will remember that it's på kjøkkenet and not I kjøkkenet. But there is really no rule. There's nothing you can learn, nothing you can study in order to get there. Yeah. If you're still listening, Don, let me know if that answers your question. And yes, islands is always på, like på Island, på Hitra, på. On an island, you would say på. On a mountain, you would say på. Yeah, anything where you're really on top of something, you would say Por, but then with a place name, it's a bit difficult whether you would say por or E. The general rule is por for the small places, E for the big places. But as I said, it can be quite a debate what is actually big and what is small. Let me see. There is now 2 or 3 questions on YouTube in the meantime. Can you recommend Norwegian podcasts, movies, or TV shows? Lately, I've been watching Skam and absolutely love it. Yes, Skam. I guess then you're quite good. Skam is amazing. I haven't watched so many Norwegian shows. Lastly, I listened to one podcast by a Norwegian psychologist, which is called Hos Peder. I can write it in the chat in YouTube and in Zoom. There is actually an app that is called Podimo, and it has a lot of Norwegian podcasts. It's free for the first probably 30 days or something like that. I can share this link also. And there you can really browse and just browse by topic and see what you like. I think there is really something for everybody. So it's very, very big. When it comes to TV shows, especially for language learners, Typisk Norsk is something that you should absolutely watch, as it has a lot of information on the Norwegian language in general. And it's very funny, and it's very, yeah, we'll just teach you a lot. But generally about these original materials, if you want to listen to podcasts, if you want to listen to or watch movies or TV shows or something like that, wait until you are at B1, B2 level, I would say, because if you do it before, it will most likely only frustrate you. It's just normal that it's too difficult for you. Otherwise, I hear this advice many times from language learners. They say, yeah, you'll have to listen to the news and you have to listen to this and that. But if it was that easy, you would just sit in a cafe and wait until you're fluent in Norwegian, right? Somewhere in Oslo, you would just listen to the people, and then this is not how it works. So you need something that is a little bit difficult for you, but not too difficult. If it's too difficult, it will just frustrate you. Of course, not so dangerous. Just try it. Try it. If you like it, if you see, I can get some of it, it's fun, I like doing it, then yes. But if you feel frustrated, then watch something easier. Watch, for example, Peppa Gris. It's what's the English original? Peppa Pig. Yeah, that's easy. That's, I think, something you can do when you are at A2 level, something like that. That would definitely be an idea. And yeah, I hope that's a bit helpful. I think there is some people, if you like Skam, says Ina, I would recommend Rådebank. Okay, I haven't seen Rådebank, but yeah, Dian says Side om Side and NRK. Okay, great recommendation. Snøfall, I don't know that one either. You see, I don't watch so many shows, and I'm a bit nerdy for that, unfortunately. Okay, we have a question from Vineyard Worker. I use Mondly, which is similar to Duolingo. Okay, good for staying in contact with the language every day, like treading water, picking up and retaining a few words now and then. Yep, okay. If it works for you, then it's great. Just make sure that you have some source of like structured input where you really get to learn the language in a bit of a, yeah, as I said, in a structured way that will gradually build your vocabulary, your grammar, your pronunciation. I think that's super important. Norsklærer Karin say, oh yeah, I forgot her. She has nice stuff on her podcast also, and on her YouTube. Her explanations are amazing. Very simple, or not so super simple if you're an absolute beginner, of course. So then it's also normal that you wouldn't understand everything from the beginning. But yeah, if you find it understandable, then you should definitely listen to her, because she really has very good input. Cool. A few people came a bit late, so just for the technical instructions, if you want to ask a question in Zoom, you can either type it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself, raise the hand, and and just ask your question. There are not so many people, so I think we can do it very informally. And on Facebook, not on Facebook, unfortunately, this doesn't go to Facebook, but on YouTube, you can ask questions by typing them in the chat. What else do we have here? Vineyard workers using Niels. Yeah, cool. NTNU has free online lessons. That's true. It's quite basic stuff, actually. It's not an app. Yeah, I mean, the good things about apps, as I said before, is that you can use them anywhere. You can just go and use them on the bus or wherever. Okay, so oh yeah, Andy has another tip. Norsk teacher Karin. Yeah, she's not active anymore on YouTube. I don't know why. So her last videos, I think, are 6 years old, but they're good. They're really good. Chris spør, bor du i Oslo? Nei, jeg bor ikke i Oslo. Jeg bor i Tyskland, faktisk. Jeg bor i Hamburg og i Bayern. I'm not sure if her videos are... Yeah, the videos are up. So norsklærer Karin, if you want to watch her, the videos are up. There are just no new videos produced by her, unfortunately. Jovan is asking how to find some videos in Norwegian language with Norwegian subtitles. Oh, that's a great question. To be honest, I don't really know. That would be super interesting. If somebody here has information on that, please share it in the chat, share it with us, because I mean, there is one issue with watching with subtitles, and that's usually that there is a mismatch for some reason. It's in all languages, not just in Norwegian, but what they put in the subtitles is usually not the same thing as what is being said. So they shorten, they use synonyms, this is very annoying. I don't know why this happens, but it actually happens a lot that the subtitles don't match the speech in the video. And that's not very helpful for language learners. But I don't know if there is yeah. If somebody of you knows, please share it in the chat, because that would be super interesting to know also. Norwegian from Zero on YouTube. Okay, I haven't heard of that one yet, so thanks for recommending it. Maybe we can I can check it out one day, and maybe some of you know it, so check it out on YouTube. What book would you recommend for a beginner that knows a bit already between A1 and A2? Well, I'm a bit biased, of course, because I published a book myself, or a series of books. If you want to use it, it's this one, The Mystery of Niels. I would say that it has quite a fast progression. It gets more difficult really fast. So if you are between A1 and A2, you can just walk through the first chapters quite fast and just listen to the story and check at what point it gets a little bit difficult for you, and then you might start reading the explanations and start studying the vocabulary and all of that a bit more systematically. Otherwise, the classic is probably På vei and Stein på stein. Maybe you can already try Stein på stein if you live in Norway, because outside of Norway it's a bit difficult to get. It's a bit expensive, but of course it covers the curriculum of the official Norwegian language instruction very well. So if you are between A1 and A2, it might be relevant for you. And I think that there is also Ollie Richards from Story Learning. He made a simple story, a relatively simple story in Norwegian, that you can buy as a book on Amazon. So that might also be relevant. Cool. Anybody knows about the subtitles for Norwegian series? No, I guess there's nobody, unfortunately, who has this information. Okay, Llama Llama and Hilda cartoons, good on Netflix. Okay, yeah, and in clear Oslo dialect. Yeah, that's a general problem, of course, which dialect to choose. I'm not sure if we should open this discussion tonight. But yeah, mostly, of course, it's Oslo dialect, and that's definitely also worth checking out. Okay, Nils books are the best. Yeah, thank you. Norwegian short stories. Yeah, I mentioned this one. God i norsk. Yeah, that's another textbook for Norwegian. I don't think there's a big difference between God i norsk and På vei. Some teachers prefer this one. Some teachers prefer that one. I would say the style is more or less the same. Cool. I guess I have all the questions here from YouTube. Let me switch back to Zoom. Is there any question in the Zoom room? Anybody who wants to know anything? Any topic related to Norwegian language, studying Norwegian, using Norwegian courses? Feel free to just unmute yourself, like in YouTube. It's really easy. It's not in YouTube. On Zoom, it's really easy. We're not many people here, so you can basically just ask your question there. I think that would be cool. Ina says everything on NRK comes with Norwegian subtitles. Okay, I didn't know that, so that's cool. So if you're advanced enough to watch stuff on NRK, then I guess you can just use the subtitles there. Cool. Yeah, I'd have about like 10-15 minutes left, so feel free to ask questions. I'll still be around here. And otherwise, if you want to check out my courses, I can share a link for this maybe. We have now also published a Swedish course. So if that's relevant for you, it's also based on a story, of course, but on a different story. So if you find Norwegian too annoying and you prefer Swedish, then you can do that. And if you want something a bit more complicated, then you can try German. And we have a textbook also for Chinese, but not an online course yet. So this will come a little bit later. And Danish, we're planning, we have, it's work in progress, but unfortunately it's not finished yet. The Danish textbook. Okay, Andy has a list of programs that he likes to watch. Oppfinneren, okay. Hvor ingen kunne tro, hvor noen kunne bo. And Peppa Gris, yeah. And the Nisser. I don't know what the Nisser stories. I assume you're referring to Niels, but maybe also another story. Chris is asking, do Norwegian movie theaters show only Norwegian movies, or do they have any in English? No, they have in English also, quite a lot. But this will not help you learn Norwegian, unfortunately. So if you want to learn Norwegian, then it will be Norwegian videos that you have to watch. But as I said, like, I'm a little bit skeptical to, I mean, Chris, I don't know what is your level exactly, but I'm a little bit skeptical to watching just random shows or podcasts or something like that. It's great if you can, but at the beginning I found it really, really frustrating. So in this case, I would rather wait a little bit with it. I know there's unfortunately a lack of material for like easy listening, easy understanding of the language. It's not so much out there. We're trying to produce a few more stories that are like just for fun at the A2 level, something like that. Then yeah, you're in chapter 29 in the second Niels course. Okay, that's good. Then you're like somewhere between A2 and B1, I would assume. You can try it. I would still say that probably the most benefit you might have is from something like Peppa Pig, something simple, because it will grow your vocabulary, and it also grows your vocabulary in context, right? Because you have the cartoon and you see, if you don't understand a word, she comes with her bike and they say like hun kommer med sykkelen sin, and you don't know the word sykkel, but you're like, okay, but she has the bike, so obviously sykkel means bike. So this is how you can learn words easily, or also recall words that are like a little bit buried down. You don't remember them very well, and but then you see them in a new context, and you're like, ah, okay, that's it. So that's something that, of course, depends. Like if you don't like it very much, then you have to find something else. But I think there was a suggestion from Diane about Lama Lama and Hilda. I think this will also not be very difficult. But yeah, feel free to challenge yourself with something more complicated. Just make sure that you don't frustrate yourself. That's a bit the risk. You're going to Oslo in June to attend language school. Okay, that's great. Like 2 months intensive, I guess. That sounds quite cool. Then make sure also to try to use Norwegian every day as much as you can. Because that's a bit the challenge at A2, B1, that you get into this mode of not being like too much caught up in school speech, but actually using it in the real world conversations. So even after class, maybe you can make Norwegian friends, maybe you can have conversations outside of the classroom. I think this would be super, super helpful for you in this situation, because there's a bit of the problem that you have the expat bubble, right? That all the students come from all around the world, and it's super interesting. You meet interesting people, and you hang out after class, and then of course everybody speaks English because you've been using Norwegian for 5-6 hours a day, and you're tired and so on. And that's very tempting, and that's nice also 1 or 2 evenings. But if you do that all the time, then you will not actually learn as much as you could. So maybe you can try to find ways that will make you use your Norwegian in the evening also. And maybe if when you meet Norwegians who want to practice English with you, I don't know if English is your first language, but probably, then you can say something like, yeah, okay, we can, but I would also like to practice my Norwegian. So maybe we can find a deal, like 20 minutes we speak English, 20 minutes we speak Norwegian, something like that. Cool. Is there på vei book B1 and B2? Yes, so, but it has a different name. So på vei is the first one. And then you have Stein på Stein, which is, I think, around A2, something like, no, B1 probably is Stein på Stein. And then you have B2, which is Her på berget. So I can write this in the chat. Stein på Stein and Her på berget. Like these are two traditional, but I would say very good books. The Worst Person in the World is very good too. Okay, I don't know this one, but thanks for the recommendation, Shake. How do you personally maintain your excellent level of Norwegian? Well, I wish it was excellent, but do you still have daily exposure to it? Daily, unfortunately, no. That would be really, really cool. But I actually do listen to like a podcast from once in a while. I read a lot also, so I like to read, and then once in a while the opportunity to talk to Norwegian friends. But I wish I had more opportunities to keep up my Norwegian. So I hope that. Not so much time I'll be able to travel to Norway again and surround me a little bit 24/7 with Norwegian. Vineyard Worker says we will be in Vågå and Ørland most of the time. We're in Norway, so just planning to let those different sounds wash over us. Any ideas about how to listen and understand? Could you maybe specify, do you mean like the because of the dialect, or more in general? I'm not sure how you would how to understand your question, how to listen and understand. If you mean in general, like to get better at understanding Norwegian, or specifically these dialects. And I have to say, I don't know where is Vågå. I have to look up for that on the map. Vågå and Ørland. Never heard of that. Vågå. Okay. Okay. That's Ørland. I think is easier to understand. Vågå might be a little bit difficult to understand from the dialect. Yeah, the dialects. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's a bit. Yeah. So that is something that I'm also planning to work on a little bit more, because unfortunately there is not so much material out there. And also in my courses, we do a little bit on dialects, but there could be way more because it is just an issue in the Norwegian language. And most Norwegian teachers tend to just ignore it. And I'm also a bit guilty of that, unfortunately. Just by looking on the map, I would assume that these two dialect regions are quite different. So unfortunately, Vågå and Ørland will be relatively different. I would guess that Ørland is easier because it's Trøndelag. Trøndelag is not so far from Oslo. Much of the characteristics or many of the characteristics are similar, both when it comes to intonation and use of words and these things. It's relatively similar. So I would think if you have a choice on what to start with, I would start with Ørland. And I would try to, so you can read a little bit on the characteristics of the dialects, depending on, of course, how good is your general Norwegian already. There is quite a nice resource, which is called Nordavind og Sola. It's a short story. It's made by NTNU. I'm sharing this also in the links, where you can hear the same story spoken by people with different dialects. You can just click on the map, and then you can click somewhere near this this place where you're going, and you can hear how people speak and what are the characteristics of these dialects. So you might do this just to see like what are differences between Trøndersk and Oslo dialect, the one that you're used to. You can also check that on if you're subscribed to my course. There is I think chapter 14 and 26 are recorded in Trøndersk, so it's spoken by somebody who has this dialect. So you can listen a little bit to what are the differences in the dialect. And then I would really just go and have, as much as you can, have conversations with people from that place and just ask them to speak slowly and to explain to them, explain to you what are specific words that they use, what they are in bokmål, how they would write them, and then gradually you will get used to it. So I had the same issue when I moved to Tromsø. I had only people from the north of Norway around me, but I had also learned Eastern Norwegian, and I had to adapt, and I had to basically do it in the same way. So this takes, unfortunately, some time, and I wish there were more materials about that out there, and I hope we can produce some of it. So yeah, but unfortunately, by now, it's not so much yet. One question, hvorfor sier vi de forente stater og ikke de forente statene? So that is a bit of a question of formality and also of the age of the language. So in the old days, when Norwegian was still closer to Danish, which is not really true, but I'm taking a bit of an abbreviation here. Danish doesn't have this double, what you call it, double bestemmthet, that you would say de forente statene. Danish has only de forente stater, so the noun stays in the non-definite form, whereas in Norwegian, everything is in the definite form. So for older expressions that have become like a fixed expression, like de forente stater, and they have existed more than 200 years, they keep this grammatical phenomenon of not using the definite form for the noun then. And you can see that a lot, like the Kongelige Slott, the Hvite Hus, in these old fixed expressions, basically. You will not have the dobbeltbestemthet. Chris is asking why Berge and not Fjellet. I think you have to ask a publisher. You mean in the book title, right? In the book title, Her på Bergen. Why is it not Her på Fjellet? That's a great question, but I think it's just for some reason the publisher decided to call it Her på Bergen. But I don't really know why they chose Her på Bergen, not Her på Fjellet. Okay, and we have Diane, who has still another suggestion. Podcasts by Camelia called Learn Norwegian, different episodes for A1, A2, and B1. That sounds great. I was not aware of that. So I think that is something that we should definitely check out. Amelia Learn Norwegian. I'll write it down, and then maybe in one of the newsletters I can talk about these resources a bit, because that sounds really interesting. Okay, we have 1 minute to go. So any last questions? Feel free to type them in the chat, and then we can slowly wrap it up and get back to learning Norwegian or whatever you're planning for tonight or today, depending on where you come from. Chris is saying I have several Norwegian books and I'm coming across older words that don't seem to be used much anymore. I thought berge might be one, like fru and værelse. Yeah, fru and værelse are definitely old. I wouldn't say berg is old, but it's more like I think you would rather use it. You would rather use it in a bit of a more abstract way. I don't know. You would say, for example, over Bergodal, but or you would also say like berg as the material, the rock, the mountain, not necessarily a concrete mountain. Okay. Let's see, is there any more question on YouTube? No, I don't think that's the case. Unfortunately, on YouTube, it takes a little bit of time, so I might have overlooked it. But anyway, you guys know where to find me. If there's any question, put it in the comments on YouTube, send me an email. I'd be happy to hear from you. And I'm glad we could do this Q&A today. It's been a long time. Sorry about this. I hope I can do it a bit more regularly. And yeah, I'll see you around. Have fun learning Norwegian. Ha det bra.